Good morning, everyone. This is Vijay Lakshmi. I am going to handle Civil Procedure Code, which is frequently known as CPC. For all the law students, you may be acquainted that there will be two kinds of legislations. One is substantive piece of legislation, and another one is procedural piece of legislation. Until now, you might have come across so many substantive pieces of legislation on par with one or two procedural aspects also, that is Evidence Act. Some of the students, they might have heard about the evidence. Actually, we are having three kinds of procedural piece of legislations. They are Civil Procedure Code, Criminal Procedure Code, and Indian Evidence Act. Overall, we are having these three types of procedural legislations to support the substantive piece of legislations. Here I have used the word supporting. It means to convey the meaning that substantive pieces of legislation we have seen until now, like Indian Contract Act, Transfer of Property Act, Indian Penal Code, etc., they are completely substantive pieces of legislations. In those legislations, you people will find what are your rights, what are your duties, how we have to act to make it valid one, and how we can enforce the rights, and what are the remedies they may be available once our rights are infringed or violated by the other parties. Until that point, it is good. That means they are giving substantial pieces of legislations are completely, they are theoretical on paper. That means they are just prescribing what is what on a piece of paper. But our problem is, though you are given certain rights, certain duties, or certain validity of terms on any piece of paper, it is not simply enough for us when our rights are really infringed or violated by the act of the other parties, and where we are put to some distress, and where we are put to some loss or injured, then there must be some mechanism to get back our rights. So CPC, these procedural losses, CPC, CRPC, and evidence, they are showing us the direction how you can get back your rights and how you can enforce your rights. The name here itself is indicating our topic is Civil Procedure Code. Civil Procedure Code is completely rotating around the civil matters or civil litigations. And Criminal Procedure Code is completely dealing with the criminal matters, completely connecting with the Indian Penal Code. That means whatever the area of offences which are given under IPC, if any person has become victim under those said offences, and he can approach the courts, criminal courts, as per the procedure laid down under CRPC. But if any civil litigation is there, civil matters are there, civil violation of rights are there, then the injured party, he is entitled to move to the civil court as per the Civil Procedure Code. That means our legislatures have enacted the procedural pieces of legislations by giving a direction to the parties how to move to the court and which court we have to move and what are the proceedings we have to undergo to get our final redress of relief. Here, this CPC, we know that it is pertaining completely and rotating around the civil matters. Generally, I tell the brief sketch of the CPC how it is going to be. Generally, people they be under the impression that it is very vast and very cumbersome and very difficult to understand. But in fact, if we see just superficially what is what as to the CPC, you just get one idea that CPC is nothing but right from your stepping into the court with a petition, with an application, with any suit, the moment you are entering into the court, that the first step itself until the last step. That means until you receive the final verdict, final judgment of the court, whatever the different stages of the proceedings they are taking place before the courtroom, all those steps, all those proceedings, all those procedures, they are enshrined in this CPC 1908. That means we need to know, okay, CPC is involving certain steps. One after the other, we are supposed to go there. Immediately, you can't simply go to the court and file the litigation, and you can't expect in the next minute itself any verdict or judgment from the court. It is for the reason that the moment you are filing any litigation against other party, we need to undergo certain process. That process is very, very must, because we all know that, especially law students, inherently we have to follow the principles of natural justice. Involuntarily, we are supposed to follow it. Under the principles of natural justice, you people might have studied that there must be a notice whenever you are making some objection, you are making one complaint to any other party, to any other authority against some other person. Immediately, the authority to whom you have complained, they are not going to give any judgment in your favor immediately. What they are doing, they are serving the notice to the other party against whom actually we have filed the complaint. You should know it. And the person against whom we have lodged any complaint, first he must be aware as to the contention, as to the averments, whatever we have made against him. Then he is coming up with some answers, rebutting our allegations, rebutting our averments. That means you are here, you are serving the notice to the other party, and at the same time you are calling the other party to present, and at the same time we are giving some opportunity for him to place his argument, his version of opinions, and after having heard both the parties, hear the both parties, one of the principles of natural justice, and after hearing the both parties on any plain evidence, whatever that is adduced by the parties, then the competent authority, it is going to decide in favor of either of one of the parties. That means it is one of the principles of natural justice by assigning some reasons why that particular judgment is passed in favor of one party and against the other party. This is the general piece of common law principle to be adopted. Even till now we are following in an inherent mode, but not in an explicit manner. But in explicit mode, we are having this is CPC or CRPC, where explicitly means completely openly, and they are expressing that the provisions in a particular mode of written document, asking the judiciary to go through that particular procedure, and thereafter, and they are saying that the court has to deliver its judgment. Otherwise, there will be clear cut. There will be clear cut uh, violation of the natural justice principles. So here CPC is nothing but all types of natural justice principles only, but they have been enshrined, they have been adopted, they have been incorporated in the form of the statute, in the form of a written mode. We all know that common law is not a written one, but whereas CPC is a written one, it is applicable to all the people, whoever approaching the court for any redress or relief, they are bound to follow, and the court is bound to observe it. So, to render the justice to all the contesting parties by following the principles of natural justice, this is CPC and CRPC and evidence have been enacted. They are just coming to the rescue of the injured parties. The injured parties are very much the moment their rights are violated, or any other person who has become the victim of any offense, immediately they are approaching the respective courts, either civil court or the criminal court, and following the procedures given under the courts with the help of some evidences, and thereby they are able to obtain some judgments. Now our topic, since it is CPC, it is completely relating to the civil litigations, and it is, however, 1908, though it was enacted, but still it came into force in the 1909. But from there onwards, it has been put to so many amendments from time to time for the easy and early disposal of the cases, and also to protect the interest of the parties under litigation. Now, overall, this CPC is divided into two parts. That first part is dealing with 158 sections, and the second part, per schedule, is it is divided into two parts, sections as well as orders and rules. If we just closely peep into this matter, one has to understand that wherever we are using the word section, sections are always they are rigid in nature. They are a little bit rigid in nature, and it is substantive in nature. Generally, they are unamendable except by the legislature. We all should understand this aspect. Whenever the sections are there, it is not that is to amend the sections. However, in rarest of rare cases, in exceptional cases, whenever there is dire necessity, definitely the sections are also going to be either changed or they are going to be repealed by keeping in view so many factors by the law commission's suggestions. The parliament is going to change even the sections, or they may be repealing it and they may be inserting a new one in the place of the old one. But still, this particular process of changing the sections is not that easy, as we change the orders and rules. Rules are completely administrative policies, administrative authorities, and the high courts, they are very much having the powers to change the rules and orders as to the convenience of the parties and convenience of the courts also. Here, the first part of the sections, I have given that CPC is overall it is having 158 sections, and it is having 51 orders, and the rules are there which are flexible in nature. Generally, they are amendable as to the requirement of the parties. Just I will cite an example here. It must be an aid to the justice, but not an hindrance to the justice. That means merely because of some technical default, there might be some technical lapse might be there. He could not, or the plaint is there. That means plaint is nothing but an application, and where you are writing all your aversions against other parties. All whatever the averments you are placing against other parties, you are putting it in the form of a paper and submitting to the court. Here, that particular format may not be in proper mode. Under those circumstances, merely you have not written the plaint in the proper mode, the court cannot give any pass any judgment against you. What it is seeing, it is asking the party again to rewrite it and resubmit it. The same application, the same plaint in proper mode by giving sufficient chance and sufficient opportunity for the parties, and thereby asking the parties to approach the court in the proper methodology and method whatever that is enshrined incorporated under CPC. So CPC, though it is technical in nature, but the technicalities may be set aside for the time being by the court for the convenience of the parties to meet the requirement of the injured parties in civil matters by rendering justice in the form of reliefs. Generally, in case of the civil matters, the fundamental relief which we are going to get is in the form of the damages or in the form of the compensations, in the form of injunction orders or mean profits, etc. is the fundamental relief for civil litigation. In the next one, here it extends application of the code. If you observe, I have given you this particular CPC is having 158 sections and divided into two parts. First part is completely substantive in nature, containing the sections, and the second part is in the form of orders and rules. Since so many students they have undergone so many subjects, you people know that the first section always it speaks about the application, and the second part always it speaks about the definitions clause. Definitions clause always be under section 2. First part is as to the application of the code, that means to what extent application and commencement of the act generally be dealt under the first section. In the first section, it is extended the whole of India. Now it is also extended Jammu and Kashmir also, except some few tribal areas in the Nagaland. But for that, CPC is applicable to whole India. In the second section, if we see that in the second section, we are observing that it has given around 20 definitions. I'll just here give the importance of this definition clause. Definitions clauses are generally interpretation clauses. Why these particular definitions are given in any statutes means The courts, while delivering the judgments, while undergoing the trial matters, while observing the arguments of the parties, the court may be observing that so many words they be used, but every word whatever we are using, we have to give that legal inference, legal meaning, rather general meaning. There will always be some legal meanings, legal terminology. The statute, it is going to give that legal definition to the particular words which are often used in any particular statute. For each statute, they are going to give certain definitions. That means, for example, if you come to the Indian Contract Act, under Indian Contract Act, you know that some definitions were given in the Indian Contract Act under Section 2. That is, what is agreement, what is contract, what is consideration. Like this, they have given the definitions. Consideration, you may be saying that it is nothing but a written quid pro quo policy, something in written. But the accurate definition, what is to be interpreted by the court, especially while delivering the judgments, is very, very important. They have to just analyze the definition given in the statute, and accordingly they have to supply it to the present case, whatever that is there before their hand, and then they have to deliver and they have to assign that meaning, whatever that is given, and accordingly they are supposed to deliver the judgments. So, section 2, though it is comprising 20 definitions, I am going to give the most important definitions which we often come across the definitions. They are decree, order, judge, judgment, debtor, ingredients and the essential elements which are constituting the word decree. First one is what they are saying. There must be a formal expression of adjudication. We know the meaning of the formal. Formal means exactly contrary to the informal. Formal means very much official. It is connoting the meaning that it is official in sense, which is serious in nature. That means it is a formal expression. It is an official expression, final expression of, final expression of what? Final expression of an adjudication. Adjudication means any judicial determination given by the competent court. Generally, we call that it is an adjudication. Adjudication. It is competently decided by the competent court. Finally, verdict, that is called adjudication. Whenever there is a final expression of any decision by the competent court, conclusively determining the rights of the parties, conclusive determination, giving no scope for any other alternative. It is conclusively, finally, by taking into consideration so many factors involved in a particular case, so many facts involved in a particular case, every nook and corner, by concentrating, by focusing on each and every element, the finally where the court is conclusively determining the rights of the parties with regard to all matters or any matters in controversy. That means where the court is finally delivering, conclusively delivering as to the determination of the rights of the parties which are contested by each other. That means one person is saying that it is my right and other person is contesting the same. The court is going to resolve whether the person who is contesting that is his right, whether it is correct or not, by determining conclusively that whether the right is belonging to Mr. A or not, conclusively determining as to whatever the issues involved in that particular case which are in controversy. In the suit, suit is very, very important here. Suit here means you people have to know that whether a particular proceedings or having the element of the having the feature of the suit or not. First, it has to be decided, because that conclusive determination, that formal expressions, formal adjudications, they have to be given by the court only in the suit they are saying. before you are judging that so and so particular expression is only decree, first you have to see that whether it is a suit or not. Now again you have to focus whether those proceedings they are forming the part of the suit or not is very very important. Now what is suit has to be known to everyone. Suit, how, whether is it defined anywhere, first you have to check it out. Whether CPC has defined the word suit or not, we have to check it out. But unfortunately, the word suit is not defined by CPC. It is not defined anywhere. But it is under the interpretation that inference that suit begins with the filing of the plaint and ending with a decree. Suit always commences. The word suit always commences with the presentation of the plaint and ends with a decree. That itself is a definition, general definition that is assigned to the word suit with this judicial decisions. One can understand that with so many judicial decisions so far given. The understanding the word meaning that has been general meaning that is assigned to the word suit is it is starting with the commencement of the, it is commencing with the presentation of the plaint. Plaint means the person who is filing the litigation before the court, right from lodging your plaint before the court until the end of the decree that is received by the party, whatever the proceedings that are taking place, those proceedings fall under the ambit of the suit. Suit means it is starting with the presentation of the plaint and ending with a decree. Here, not only that formal expression or adjudication, it may be here he has given, it may be preliminary and final. That means whatever the adjudication, sometimes the decree, whatever that is passed by the court, sometimes it may be a preliminary decree or it may be even final decree, depending upon the facts of the case. It shall be deemed to include. Deeming provision is given here. What they are saying, even though the decree, the word decree, sometimes we have to assign the meaning even to the rejection of the plaintiff, which is a deemed decree here. That means those present whenever the court has rejected any plaintiff, that rejection of plaint is considered as deemed decree. It is also considered as decree. For example, I have presented a case before the law court. But for some reasons, because of some technical defaults, technical mistakes or loopholes, my plaint has been rejected by the court. Whatever the order of the rejection is given by the court, that is constituting the element of the decree here, and it is also considered as deemed decree. It is also having the feature of decree only, that you call that it is a deemed decree, because in this rejection of the plaintiff, you are not finally conclusively determining the parties. It is a superficial. Plaint means nothing happened, just have dropped the contentions before the court. But that contention itself is rejected by the court. That means the court has not conducted any proceedings and other parties not served the summons. No subsequent proceedings like appearance of the parties, examinations, trial proceedings, nothing is conducted by the court. The court has not applied its mind at all. In the initial stages itself, the court has rejected the plaint. Though the court, that means rejecting the plaint, is also very much a decision of the court. That decision of the court is constituting the feature of the decree here as according to section 2.2. Rejection of the plaint is a deemed decree because it has not, though it has not conclusively determined the parties, but still it is decision of the court. Therefore, it is considered as and the determination of any question within section 47 or section 144. Both under section 47 as well as under section 144 restitution proceedings, there also whatever the decision, any adjudication from which an appeal lies, adjudication from which an appeal lies, or an appeal from an order, or an order of dismissal for default. These will not be included under the definition of the decree. Any adjudication from which an appeal lies means, for example, where the decree is already obtained. Every decree is appealable. It is every decree is appealable unless a particular statute is prohibiting it. We are having every right to move to the first appellate court. Every decree is appealable, but every order is not appealable here. Before you are making it finalized, before it is going for execution, where the time lag is given, time period is given for approaching the higher court, within that time period, there is chance for the opponent, that is judgment debtor, he can move to the appellate court. Such decrees immediately cannot be called a final verdict because still appeal is pending. You can't say that whatever the decree, whatever the judgment that is delivered by the lower court, it itself is becoming final because still some pending appeal is there. After the appellate court has delivered the judgment, then it is taking the concrete shape of the decree. Wherever there is a chance for the adjudication from which an appeal lies, or an appeal lies just like an appeal from an order, under such instances, in that particular decree, you can't say that it is a final, it shall not include under the section 2.2. Similarly, where any order of dismissal for default is made, we all know that dismissal for default means we are dismissing the case whenever the plaintiff who has filed the case has not appeared. When he himself has not appeared, then naturally order of dismissal for default will be passed. That is known. Whenever such order is passed, then also it is not constituting the element of the word decree. Next explanation part, it is saying a decree is preliminary when further proceedings are still have to be taken before the court, before the suit can be completely disposed of. It is final when such adjudication completely disposes of the suit. It may be partly preliminary and partly final. That means it is saying the decree, whatever the adjudication that is made by the court, sometimes it is preliminary, sometimes it may be final. Sometimes it may be partly preliminary, partly final. Just let me cite an example here. A decree is preliminary, especially preliminary decrees may be passed. That means before going to the final issues, before going to give the final judgment, sometimes the necessity may be arising for the court to pass immediate verdict which is conclusively determining as to the rights of the parties, which is also final conclusive determination as to the rights of the parties only, but still that particular decision is preliminary only but not final because still some other issues are depending upon this preliminary decree. I just cite an example here where four persons ABCD who are the partners in a particular business. They have been doing the business for the past 5 years, but their particular partnership firm is not a registered firm. It is an unregistered one. They are running with that agreement without getting it registered. Up to 5 years, they could run the business smoothly, but after that, some disputes occurred. Mr. A, he wants to come out of the business. He sought for his share in the profit as well as in the capital. But the remaining partners, B, C, D, denied to make the payment. They did not give. Then what he did, he has gone to the court and filed the litigation for the dissolution of the firm and subsequent settlement of the account. He has dropped the litigation, civil litigation before the law court, claiming his right of profit, share in the profit. For the share in the profit, since it is an unregistered firm, he can't file the litigation directly seeking for the share. So that what he did is, he has filed a suit for the dissolution of the total firm and then subsequent settlement of the account and for his share in the profit as well as in the capital. In this occasion, the other three parties, B, C, D, who are contesting against A is plaintiff and the three B, C, D are the defendants D1, D2, D3. All of them, they are contesting that Mr. A is not a party. He is not having any share. Here, the preliminary issue has to be now the first fundamental issue before making the settlement of account as is sought by Mr. A, the plaintiff. First of all, the court has to decide whether Mr. A is really a partner in the firm and what is his share in the business. Everything is to be determined, and what is his right in that particular business has to be determined. It is the preliminary issue. After the court has decided the preliminary issue only, it can go to the further issues and it can finally deliver the judgment as to his share in the profits in the business or not. First, it has to decide whether first Mr. A is a partner in the firm has to be decided. What is his right in that business has to be decided. This particular decision is conclusively determining as to the rights of the A on par along with the B, C, D. Now the court is going to determine it by taking the evidences whether any particular document in the form of agreement is there, parties, whether A, B, C, D, all the four have signed the agreement, whether does it have all the essential elements and legal validity, legal sanctity, whether it is present in that agreement or not. Everything will be checked up by the court, and after having checked and after having determined everything finally, it is going to say whether Mr. A is a partner in the firm or not. This particular judgment is known as preliminary decree. That means pending the final disposal of the case, first one decree, first final adjudication as to the parties will be made by the. I am going to resume the remaining part in the next class. Okay. Thank you.